the same street as the 2015 massacre at the offices of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, and it coincided with the trial of 14 alleged accomplices in that case.
Country
Authorities say
on the way to Bathurst.
A woman from a documentary company had gone out for a cigarette when they were stabbed. Witnesses say a meat cleaver was used. Two men are in custody.
There is nothing to show on the bitumen road. Get it out the side. There is nothing to show on the bitumen road.
Both victims are expected to recover. Nick Dole, ABC News.
A police officer shot dead at a custody centre in South London yesterday and has been named as New Zealand-born Sergeant Matt Ratana. The 54-year-old was shot in the chest by a handcuffed 23-year-old suspect who was in hospital after supposedly turning a gun on himself. London Police Chief Christina Dick says Sergeant Ratana...
Zero visibility.
His colleagues knew him as a big guy, big in stature, big in heart, friendly, capable, a lovely man, highly respected by his colleagues.
China has dismissed an Australian think tank's findings that the Communist Party is bolstering its network of detention facilities for Muslim minorities in the northwestern province of Xinjiang. A report by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute claims to have identified 380 detention camps in the region, and at least 60 of them have been expanded. China claims all detainees were released from the facilities late last year. The country's foreign ministry spokesman, Wang Wenbin, says the Australian report has no credibility.
The report is purely fake and slanderous. The right to religious freedom in Xinjiang has been fully protected, and the rights and freedoms of people of all ethnic groups have been effectively protected according to law.
A power struggle over who will be Malaysia's rightful Prime Minister looks set to drag on for another week until the country's king is well enough to meet with key stakeholders.
Look how low the cloud is.
Correspondent Anne Barker explains.
Yes.
Palace officials say Malaysia's king won't be meeting anyone for a week while he recovers in hospital, despite claims by opposition leader Anwar Ibrahim that he's secured majority support in Parliament to form a new government and replace Muhyiddin Yassin as Prime Minister. He needs the king to appoint him to the top job, or at least trigger an election. But the palace says the king has been told to stay in hospital another 7 days. Prime Minister Muhyiddin, meanwhile, will be hoping a key state election today in Sabah province will help shore up national support for his ruling coalition.
The judge who presided over the trial of Bradley Robert Edwards, who's been found guilty of 2 of the Claremont murders, did not accept some key evidence. David Webber reports.
Bradley Edwards was found guilty of the murders of Jane Rimmer and Kira Glennon in the 1990s. Edwards worked for Telstra, and a knife that was said to be issued by the company was found near where Ms Rimmer's body was left. But Justice Hall said it wasn't possible to conclude it was dropped by the killer or that it was the murder weapon. Regarding the accounts of those who had interactions with Telstra vehicles in Claremont or Cottesloe, Justice Hall said it was impossible to conclude that the same person was responsible for the incidents or that Edwards was the driver in any of them.
Wild weather hit Sydney last night with more than 20,000 people losing power at the height of the storm. A massive cold front swept in from western New South Wales, hitting the Blue Mountains, Sydney and the Illawarra. Trees were brought down and power lines cut, causing major delays on train services. Emma Delaney from the State Emergency Service says there were more than 250 calls for help.
Holy shit.
A fast-moving wind and rain across the east coast, so passing through the Sydney, Greater Sydney metropolitan area. So most of the work that we've received has been concentrated around Western Sydney and the Blue Mountains. Most of those related to trees down and roof damage.
To sport, and in Rugby League, South Sydney has recorded its biggest ever win over their arch rivals, the Sydney Roosters. ABC Grandstand's Andrew Moore wrapped up the match.
Despite conceding the first points in the game, the Rabbitohs ran a mark crossing for 10 tries. 5 of them scored by winger Alex Johnston, who with his 5th became the NRL's leading try scorer, one ahead of Cole Belt. Adam Reynolds kicked 10 goals in 12 attempts to replace Cole Flanagan as the leading point scorer. South wrap up a home final next week in the elimination game against the Newcastle Knights, who have flogged 36-6 by the Gold Coast. The Titans end the season with 5 straight victories. Andrew Moore, ABC News, Sydney.
Oh, that's the average speed safety length.
Is it? Right.
But we're hardly. They're must be 3 checkpoints. That's the second one. They're saying we're hardly gone.
What support should be on offer for the so-called COVID long haulers? And we all want to get our lives back to normal, so could sniffer dogs be the answer?
The dogs are able to detect the people that are infected as soon as the virus starts to replicate in their body, before you've got any symptoms or even before you start shedding the virus.
There's been some good news here in Australia this week when it comes to the pandemic. Some borders are slowly opening up and the numbers of new cases are dropping. Just over 24,000 Australians have recovered from COVID-19, but many are still struggling with symptoms ranging from severe exhaustion and lung damage to cardiac issues and brain fog.
My name is Mirabai Nicholson McKellar and I am on day 195. I first got COVID in Germany in March.
When she returned to Australia, Mirabai Nicholson McKellar wasn't particularly sick. But in the midst of quarantine, she got really ill and eventually tested positive to COVID 3 times. 6 months on, she is still struggling with the disease.
Honestly, I feel like a shadow of myself. I have pretty much daily crippling headaches. I feel like an old lady, like, I feel like I've aged.
And you're 35, aren't you?
I'm 36, yeah. So I was kind of fit and active before this, and now, you know, I'm having naps in the day. I do something in the morning when my mind's a little bit clearer, and then I just hit the wall of fatigue and brain fog, and I can barely hold a conversation. I can barely construct a sentence sometimes.
Brain fog,
and
that's
what about
a word I
from
want.
doctors? What's that been like? Have you felt there's been enough medical support and input for you?
I feel like I've been lucky in the sense that I had contact with a good local GP, and he, when I kind of rang him after still being sick for, 6 weeks, he was like, okay, this is going on too long, we need to get you checked out. So I felt like I did have that support, but I also felt really unsupported as well in many ways, because, I went to hospital with chest pains and all my tests came back normal. So they don't know what's going on. My chest x-ray was foggy, but I just got sent home with Panadol, and I'd done 2 months alone almost by that point, and I just needed someone to kind of, help me in some way. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess that also is just there's so many unknowns with COVID, so I appreciate that, the medical system said, well, we don't know. But I do felt like because of the contagion risk, I was very much advised to stay at home. So I did the tough, I can't breathe, I might need to call an ambulance for about a week, just on my own. And that was pretty challenging.
It's very unclear just how many people are still struggling with the after effects of COVID. Some studies suggest 10% of those who catch it will still have symptoms months later. But a study from a hospital in the UK found it could be as high as 70%. It was a small study, but it found that 81 patients out of 110 discharged from Southmead Hospital.
This feels like real snow now.
Yes, it's true.
Paul Garner is a professor at the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. He's also a long hauler himself. I first spoke to Paul back in July, and he says that in the UK at least, there's a desperate need for more medical support for those with long COVID.
I think there needs to be some leadership to bring the disciplines together, to look at how they tackle it, because at the moment we've got cardiologists making some statements, we've got general practitioners, we've got the physios, the psychiatrists, so everybody's got something to say, and in a sense, it doesn't help patients to have all these different groups. I mean, Linda, there is stuff that we know about these conditions. We know about how
Bathurst going to be in snow.
We know about
I had no idea it would snow at Bathurst.
It's not new stuff, if you see what I mean. The virus has caused a variety of syndromes, but in medicine we know stuff about how it should be managed, and it's drawing all that in together to provide GPs and others with comprehensive help.
We'll hear a little more from Paul Garner later in the program.
But here in Australia, Julian Elliott is the chair of the National COVID-19 Clinical Evidence Task Force, which provides advice to GPs on how to assist long haulers.
At the moment, unfortunately, there's not a lot of parties that we can do confidently. I think one of the most important things is that people recognise that prolonged symptoms after an acute phase of COVID is a reality that does occur, and it's extremely important that healthcare professionals and in fact people generally in society are aware of this and support people during this time. As we've seen in the past with fatigue syndromes and other
snow on that car.
Seriously. I couldn't have predicted this on today's drive. I couldn't have predicted this on today's drive. I only looked at the weather this morning.
I think again,
I can't believe it.
General community attitudes and awareness within.
And I didn't think it snowed this far west. I thought it was just or that orange. But will it be all the way between Bathurst and well, it's only 50 k's between Bathurst and Orange.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that things that we can do in our way that we can support.
The American emergency physician Craig Spencer, who famously survived Ebola when he was working in West Africa, he's written about long-term effects from that infection. I wonder if there are lessons from other serious viral infections like Ebola.
Look, it's under cold now.
COVID situation.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned other post-infectious
This is frozen.
because of exactly that. So we know there's a whole range of infections that can sometimes lead to these prolonged symptoms, certainly including fatigue, but not just fatigue. And what's really important is that we need to understand that COVID-19 may be different. So whilst we use those general approaches, we also have to be very conscious that